Medical Dilemmas with Dean. Welcome to Medical Dilemmas with Dean, the podcast with stories about the highs and the lows of going through medical issues. I'm your host and storyteller, Dean Balstrak, and today we will start from the very beginning of my story. I was born with a very rare liver disease called biliary atresia. For listeners who have not gone to medical school or who do not know how to spell biliary atresia in the Google search bar, biliary atresia is a disease that affects the bile ducts attached to your liver. The good news is that I recently found out that it is spelled biliary. Now stay with me for a second because this is where it gets really intense. There's a space and then Atresia. That's right, this is a 2-word disease. 2 words. That's how you know it's really serious. And it is the easiest win you'll ever have in any word scramble game like Scrabble or Bananagrams. So, the bile ducts carry the bile that the liver produces from the liver and into your intestines. But with biliary atresia, the ducts become constricted, which causes clogging. It prevents the bile from entering the intestines. From the day I was born, my health was slowly declining, and I was getting more and more sick as the disease's grip on the ducts tightened. Eventually, I was diagnosed with biliary atresia, and it was determined that I required a liver transplant to survive. The doctors tried to perform a Kasai to eliminate the constricted bile ducts and prevent the transplant from having to occur, but the procedure did not work. I immediately was scheduled for a living donor transplant and was also placed on a cadaver waiting list to receive a liver if one became available before my appointment came up. However, my health was getting worse and worse with every passing week as the appointment got closer, and the cadaver donor did not come up in time, so it was determined that I had to get the living donor transplant from my dad. The transplant went smoothly, and I began to recover. Despite the transplant providing me with my dad's liver, however, this did not mean that I could drink, since the liver can actually regenerate itself and adapt to your body, which is really awesome. However, the road ahead of me was still very long, and forever will be alcohol-free. So if you ever need an Uber ride, I got you. Since the transplant, I have had 45 and counting procedures involving anesthesia. After the transplant, I continued to have problems arise with my liver that required action ranging from immediate to a long-term series of procedures. These procedures did not hinder my life outside the hospital as much when I was younger, but as I grew older and took on more responsibilities and activities, the procedures became more detrimental to my extracurriculars, schools, and hobbies. I like to use the analogy of being lost or stuck in the woods to describe my situation better. I was put into the woods from the day I was born, the exact center, and I've been trying to find a way out ever since through procedures and surgeries and medication. Some parts of the woods are not so bad and provide a nice big clearing for a couple years, but the clearing is still surrounded by the looming trees, and I must keep moving towards them to get out. It is almost inevitable that I'll have to go through more procedures, and other parts of the woods are deep and dark, locked in shadow from the dense canopy above, but I still push forward. As time has passed, I have become more attuned to the endless expanse of woods and twisted thickets, and have developed ways to manage and get through even the deepest and darkest parts. I found comfort in a wide range of activities and coping mechanisms such as extracurricular activities, pushing myself to stay up to date in school, and talking to friends, families, and counselors about my situation. My favorite extracurricular activities are cross country and spring sailing. Both have varsity teams at my high school. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, you choose to run for long distances at once? You actually enjoy it? My answer is yeah. I'm a little crazy. Okay, maybe a lot crazy. But despite the craziness that is required to run long distances, running is actually quite therapeutic for me, and it has taught me a lot about perseverance and pushing yourself through when you just want to stop running and walk the rest of the race. There are a lot of excuses that one can come up with when running. The most frequent one is, oh, I have to stop to pee. But doing so gets very suspicious after the second time. My coach even has a list of the various excuses that he has heard from kids who have either mispracticed or cheated the workout. With an endless expanse of excuses at hand, it is tough to push through the tiredness and the conveniently timed cramps, which I may or may not have had a couple of. But I still have been able to push through and run my heart out during every race and every practice. This has helped me immensely with my medical experiences, because without that drive and perseverance I gained from running, I would not be able to push myself through long hospital stays or even endure long-term sequences of procedures. Although I said a lot of medical mumbo-jumbo earlier, I only have a PhD in the Google search bar, and I am far from a professional, so take this with a grain of salt. But I would highly recommend it to anyone going through medical difficulties or struggles to find a sport or activity that you like and can do to help yourself through. Another method I use is through the use of humor, lightheartedness, and especially, unfortunately, puns. I also like to say little quips that'll help cheer either myself up or others around me, especially when talking about my medical situation. I'm also a very firm believer in the old saying of laughter is the best medicine, and I make sure to take a dose at least every day. And anybody listening to this podcast should as well. Although I do not remember much, or anything for that matter, from the transplant itself, or the recovery thereafter, or really anything earlier than kindergarten, partially because I was on a lot of medication around that time between anesthesia and countless antibiotics. But over the course of this podcast, I will be telling you about all of the medical stories that I was old enough to remember and conscious for that have shaped my saga of medical dilemmas. That is it for this episode of Medical Dilemmas with Dean. And if you would like to hear more, then make sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications to stay up to date for the next episode. All of the music for this podcast is made by my brother Steve. And the podcast is edited by myself. And I will see you all next time for another Medical Dilemma with Dean.